So this video is all about part one of the speaking test. In the overview, I talked about the different sections of the test, and we have part one, part two, and part three. And so in this video, I'm going to talk exclusively about part one. So let's just remind ourselves of some of the kind of questions that you get. And here are some sample questions that will come up in part one. For example, you'll get maybe a topic about your home, and you've got what type of home do you live in, what is your favourite room in there, how long have you lived there. Another typical topic that you might get could be eating habits. So here are some sample questions. Do you like to cook? Do you like to try food from different countries? Do you like to watch television programs about food? Do you think it is important to eat healthy? So, as I said in the overview, most of the questions related to part one are about familiar topics. And I hope that you can see from these examples that really there's nothing too complicated or tricky about the kind of questions that you will be asked in the interview for part one of IELTS. So let's talk about how to answer these questions. Now, when you think about how to answer, you need to think about what the examiner is looking for. So if you're not sure about exactly what the examiner needs to assess in terms of your speaking, there is a video on that, and you can check that out in more detail. But just quickly, remember that you need to show fluency, you need to show a range of vocabulary, you need to show good grammar, and you need to show good pronunciation. Okay, so let's look at some tips and strategies for answering these part one questions. So basically, there are 2 points that will help you to deliver strong answers. And the first point is that a good answer in part one is long. It is not short. So you need to say as much as you can. And how do you do that? Well, basically, you need to include as much detail as possible. Now, to help you with thinking of the details, here's a few tips that you can consider. So a little as prompts, first thing would be why. Why do you like something? Why do you dislike it? Why do you agree? Why do you disagree? Why do you think whatever it is you're talking about? So what is the second trigger? What factors support your reason? Now, it's better if you just say, oh, I don't like something because it is not very nice. That's not good enough. You need to say exactly what is nice about it. What are the actual factors that result in your feeling and your attitude? Secondly, another little trigger you can use is how. How do the factors explain the reasons that you give? So to understand this better, let's look at a few example questions and compare the kind of answers that are commonly given. So here's the first question, do you like cooking? Now let's look at this possible answer. Yes, I do, because it is very interesting. Now, if we look at that, we can say that that is a weak answer. The vocabulary is quite simple with everyday words, and really it doesn't tell you very much. Okay, you have a reason, but we don't really know what is interesting about cooking. Now, compare it with this answer. As you can see, this answer is longer. I'll just read it out for you. Yes, I do. I think this is because I want my children to have a healthy diet. If I cook, I know that my children will eat food that is good for them, especially vegetables. So you can see the difference here. Speaker 1 has just given a very general reason. Speaker number 2 has gone into the details of exactly why they like cooking. And that kind of specific level of detail is the kind of thing that you need to think about. Let's look at another example. So let's look at a second question here, and this is a follow-up on the same topic. Do you think children should learn to cook? And once again, we have another answer here. No, I think cooking is bad for children because it is dangerous. Again, you have a reason, but there's not enough details. Once again, we need to know what is dangerous about cooking. So let's compare it to a stronger answer, which goes into more specific reasons. Well, I'm not sure about that. The problem is that kitchens are dangerous places. There are sharp knives and things such as pans, plates can be hot, as well as electrical equipment. If a child is allowed in the kitchen, they must be carefully supervised. So you can see that, again, this second answer is much stronger because it goes into some specific reasons about how kitchens can be dangerous places. Now, it's okay to say, I think cooking is bad for children because it is dangerous, but the point I'm making here is don't stop there. Carry on and talk about the dangers that children could face. Okay, let's look at one more question to see if you can follow here. So with this one, we have one of the early topics. What is your favourite room in your house? And again, we have a short answer. My bedroom is my favourite room in my house because I can do anything I like in there. Again, this would be a weak answer because the reason doesn't really add any information. I can do anything I like in there. What does anything mean? It lacks in detail. Now, here is a nice long example, so I'll read this out. My bedroom is my favourite room in my house. There are 3 main things I like about my bedroom. Firstly, it has 2 large windows that let in lots of sunlight. This makes my bedroom bright and clear at any time of the day. Secondly, I have my own flat screen TV, so I can watch anything I want without having to fight over the remote control with my brothers and sisters. Finally, my bedroom has its own bathroom, so I do not have to share with other people in my family. So you can see that this is a much more detailed and specific answer. Now, a good tip here is, if you can, try and break things down into 3. So for example here, we've got, there are 3 main things I like about my bedroom. And then the person goes in, the first thing, the second thing, and the final thing. And that's a really good little tip to think about. Break things down and don't just give one reason, but see if you can add 2 or 3 supporting points to your main opinion. So there are a few examples of weak and strong answers to give you an idea of what you need to do in order to perform well in part 1. I'll just close this video with a few tips. So here are some general tips to think about. Obviously, you need to give the examiner what he is looking for. As I said at the start of the video, think about saying as much as you can to score well in your fluency. Use as much interesting vocabulary as possible. Try to cut down on your grammar mistakes and speak as clearly as you can. Once again, refer to the video about what the examiner is looking for if you want more details of this. Listen carefully to the question. Now, the examiner can repeat the question, but they're not going to repeat it many times. So you should concentrate and get the question. If you don't understand, it is okay to ask them to repeat, but they're not going to do it forever or many times. The other point is, if you are interrupted, don't worry. Obviously, the example questions and answers that I showed you, some of them were quite long, especially that one about the bedroom. Now, if the examiner stops you in the middle there, don't worry. It usually means that time is going on and the examiner needs to move on to the next question in order to complete the exam properly. And then finally, the tip to remember is, of course, to be prepared. Practice. Of course, these kind of things, the more you practice, the better you will be. And there are lots and lots of sources where you can get practice questions. In fact, I have uploaded some example questions that you can use for practice. And don't be shy. Go through those practice questions, practice talking and giving your answers as many times as you can. The more times you repeat, the easier it's going to be. So again, one of the key secrets to getting a good score is practicing and going over those questions many times. Okay, that's it. That's a look at part 1, and I hope you found this video useful. I'll see you in the next video, which of course will be about part 2 of the speaking test.